want to talk about boundaries. Boundaries in relationships are so important because often we'll feel anxious when something's off in a relationship, and we'll try and move toward the other person to keep reassuring ourselves that everything's okay. Or we'll feel really avoidant because something's off and the relationship's getting too close maybe, and it feels uncomfortable. Those are both issues that come from attachment theory, really. And that's one way we describe relationships and the way we move within relationships, whether we're moving toward people, whether we're moving away from them, and the reasons why. Often it's based on tension, but what we go over in counseling is looking at skills that can help with that. Skills to improve our interpersonal communication, but also how we can create boundaries that make us feel safe while also being in a good relationship. So boundaries are super important. And I love the way that Brené Brown has described boundaries. And that's mainly through the trust acronym of how trust is in a relationship and how we can create a safe space. So the braving acronym is what she uses. I love it because it shows us if we're being authentic to who we are in the relationship, but also a way that we can see if we have strong boundaries in a relationship. So those are things I go over more with clients, but today I wanted to kind of go over it with you and see if I can help in any way. So let's dig in. When we look at our relationships, we also want to look at, are you being authentic to who you are? And are you showing up as yourself in relationships? Are they ones that you can show up in? They aren't always. And often if we have trauma in our background, it could be a lot of interpersonal trauma. That means that trauma happens within the relationship, maybe with parents, maybe with a relationship with a partner, or friendships, with bullying. Those are all different forms of interpersonal trauma. And it can be hard to feel safe while being alone, and it can feel hard to be safe in a relationship. Sometimes we don't have boundaries with ourselves even. So we want to get to a place where you feel strong and congruent in who you are. So again, we gain this by showing up in a real way, and that can be something we have to learn how to do. With trauma, we learn that who we are isn't safe to share with other people. And there's different other core beliefs that we learn in that trauma. We gain this showing up in a real way by being brave in the face of the feelings of uncertainty. And uncertainty and vulnerability are so hard when they're mixed with criticism. They can just be hard in general. Finding this way of being isn't a way of being passive. It's a daily practice of being really intentional and loyal to who you are, to yourself. It's a practice that requires us to be not only vulnerable in learning and being open to learning, but also being vulnerable in being uncomfortable, getting into it and looking at how we can be present with others without sacrificing who you are, because that's an important piece. Sometimes this feels like standing alone, and it often can be. It's stepping out of what we've done for so long and choosing to be authentic instead. This requires one more thing than anything else, and that's trust. Trust in yourself and trust in the relationships. So trust is described as choosing to risk making something that's valuable to you, like your thoughts and emotions, and making them vulnerable to another person. I like that way of describing trust because in every relationship we have to have some trust, or else it's not going to be a good relationship. And distrust can be described as what is important to me is not safe with this other person. And so Trusting ourselves and others is a really courageous task. And we like to review these braving questions below when we look at how we build that trust and how we build boundaries. So checking in with yourself as we go through these questions. Check in with yourself by thinking about the last time you interacted with friends or families or partners or coworkers in these ways. So in braving, B stands for, did I trust my own boundaries? Did I say what was okay and what was not okay? Communication is really important in not assuming that the other person knows how I feel or what I was thinking or what I wanted even. So did you trust your boundaries? Were you clear about what was okay and what was not okay? Often what Brené Brown says is that being clear is being kind. And I found that a lot to be true in my life. Next, the R stands for reliable. Was I reliable to myself? I do what I said I was going to do. Sometimes we don't always do what we said we were going to do. And that can be because we forget. That's a common thing. And if we forgot, did we show up and were clear about being like, hey, I'm really sorry that I forgot that. And then try and repair the relationship. Repairing is a big skill. Next, A is for, was I accountable to myself? And did I hold myself accountable to others? That's that repair piece again. Then B is for, did I respect privacy and share appropriately? I is for, did I act in my integrity? And N is for, did I ask for what I need, or was I non-judgmental about needing help? Often we bring a lot of judgment to ourselves and shame about needing help from anyone. And being open about those feelings can be helpful in a safe space like this one. Then G is, was I generous with myself? And when I thought about people and their interactions or interpretations of me, when I thought about them, was I generous? So generosity can be extended to others and ourselves and in a non-judgmental way. So that can be a big piece of self-compassion that we work on. Was I compassionate towards myself? For a friend, I would probably be like, hey, it's okay that you forgot. For myself, that shame might feel a little bit more like self-criticism. Next, we look at elements of trust that happen in a relationship. So as trusting others in relationships is a really vulnerable task, boundaries are very straightforward, telling others first what's okay and what's not okay in terms of our relationship. When we trust others and we look at these questions of braving, we also look at the 7 elements of trust. That's what those acronyms stand for. And that's where those questions come from. So when we work with maintaining our relationships, looking at boundaries for B. You respect my boundaries in a relationship, and when you're not clear about what's okay and what's not okay, you ask, and you're willing to say no. That's a main element of trust and boundaries. Reliability. You do what you'll say you'll do. This means staying aware of your abilities and limitations so you don't overcompensate or over-compromise yourself and are able to deliver on the commitments that you make. So you're able to balance competing priorities, like with kids and work or partners and work. Any type of relationship and something that's a priority are important to you. We want to make sure that we're in balance. In relationships, often we get upset because the other person didn't value us or our time. And they might be upset with us because the same way we didn't value them or their time, and that's where issues happen. Accountability is huge. So in a good relationship, you own your mistakes, you apologize, and you make amends. There can be a lot of feelings that come up with that, and we want to discuss them, why they're coming up, and if there's an issue. Accountability can be really important, and we want it from other people. If you think about a relationship you're in, do you want the person to own their mistakes and apologize? Or are you okay with them never apologizing and making mistakes but not really caring about you? That's a big piece. So the V stands for vault. I know we kind of missed that early on, but it's where you don't share information and experiences that aren't yours to share. Often we call this gossiping. And in a relationship, I need to know that my confidences are kept and that you're not sharing with me any information about other people that they asked you not to. How often do you come away from a meeting with friends and they gossiped about other people and you feel a little icky about it? What we want is that our friends don't share our information. Or they ask if it's okay to share. That's respectful. So having a vault kind of ideal is having that basic trust in a relationship. It's so important. And it's something we can learn. Integrity is the I. So integrity is a big part of trust in relationships because you choose courage over comfort, right over what is easy. And you choose to practice your values that are important to you. Sticking to our values in relationships can be hard. Next, N is non-judgmental. So that means I can ask for what I need and you can ask for what you need. And we can talk about how we feel without any judgment or feelings of shame or criticism that'll come towards us, without any tension. That non-judgmental space in relationships leads to stronger trust. If I have a partner and I can't share how my day was or say that I need them to do things, it might lead to a lot of tension in the relationship, and it might lead us to have a bad relationship. We need to be able to ask for what we need, and we need to be able to let other people ask us for what they need, even if we say no. They're allowed to ask without feeling like we're going to get then generous. G. So you extend the most generous interpretation possible to the intention, to words and actions of others. So how often do people approach you and you think you were slighted or you think they're out to get you? That's not taking a generous approach to them. And so boundaries are important because they provide structure and security in our lives. They help us to see what is important to us and why. Boundaries help us see what's important to you and in the relationships with other people around you. They also help us stand out from other people. Boundaries help us to have a fence around us, that I can be authentic in this sense. When I hit an area in a relationship where I come away, I go, that felt really gross. I did not like that coffee date I just had, because that boundary was bumped. And so exploring what that is can be really helpful. And it's also about exploring what's important to you in relationships. And that's how we find true belonging and how to be authentic and congruent in our lives. Having boundaries can provide us with a bit of freedom to make our own decisions based on our values and what we choose to do. They give us that freedom that within this space, I'm me. This is my decisions. And my boundaries protect my decisions and my choices. To live on purpose is having boundaries. Living with direction and intentionality. It leads us to true belonging within ourselves, a place where we feel home and authentic and can breathe in our own skin. So if you want to start learning how to do boundaries, we'll follow this up. And you can always reach out and have a session to look at how you can build your boundaries. But we also have a worksheet on our website that you can get for looking at how to start boundaries and how to make them your own. Look at self-exploration. So if that's something that interests you, we'd love to help. Bye for now.